Daniel walked down the crowded city street, his hands deep in his coat pockets. It was one of those late autumn evenings when the sun had already disappeared behind tall buildings, and a chill filled the air. People hurried past him, heads down, trying to escape the biting wind. Daniel didn't mind the cold. He liked walking alone, letting his thoughts wander. As he turned a corner near the park, he noticed a young woman sitting alone on a worn wooden bench. She was wrapped in a thin jacket, one that didn't seem enough for the cold. Her hair fell messily across her face, and she hugged an old bag tightly against her chest. Daniel slowed his pace. Something about her looked different, like she was carrying more than just her bag. He hesitated for a moment before walking closer. "Excuse me," he said gently. "Are you okay?" The woman looked up, startled. Her dark eyes were wary, almost afraid. She nodded quickly but didn't speak. Daniel noticed the faint tremble in her hands as she clutched the strap of her bag. "Do you need help?" he asked again. "Maybe I can. I don't know. Give you a hand?" She hesitated, biting her lip. Then, almost in a whisper, she said, I don't have enough for the bus." Daniel's heart tightened. It was such a small thing, just a bus fare, but something in her voice made him want to help. "Don't worry about it," he said, reaching for his wallet. "I can pay for you." Her eyes widened, and for a moment she looked like she might refuse. But then she whispered, "You paid for me." Her voice was soft, almost breaking, and Daniel felt a strange weight in his chest. "It's nothing," he said quickly, smiling. "Just a small thing." She looked down at the ground, twisting the strap of her bag. Daniel realized she wasn't just shy. She seemed used to keeping people at a distance. "Thank you," she said finally, her voice barely audible. Daniel nodded, feeling a curious mix of relief and worry. He didn't know her story, but he wanted to. "I'm Daniel," he said. "What's your name?" "Maya," she replied softly. "Well, Maya," Daniel said, "I hope you get home safely." She nodded again. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then she stood slowly, adjusted her bag, and started walking toward the bus stop. Daniel watched her go, wondering about her life, about the story behind those tired eyes. The next few days, Daniel found himself thinking about Maya more than he expected. It wasn't just about the bus fare, it was about the way she looked at the world, cautious but still trying to survive. He couldn't explain it, but something about her stayed with him, tugging at his mind. A week later, he saw her again. This time, she was sitting outside a small cafe, sketching something in a notebook. Daniel stopped, unsure if he should approach her. But before he could decide, she looked up and caught his eye. A small, almost shy smile appeared on her face. "Hi," Daniel said, walking over. "Hi," Maya replied, her voice a little stronger this time. "I see you're busy," Daniel said. Nodding toward her notebook, she hesitated, then showed him a quick sketch of the city street they were on. "I like drawing," she said. "It helps me forget things for a while." Daniel nodded, understanding more than she realized. "I can see that. It's good to have something that makes you feel calm." They talked a little more. Daniel learned that Maya worked long hours at a nearby cafe and sometimes took extra shifts just to make ends meet. She lived with her younger brother, who was still in school, and she carried the responsibility of keeping their small apartment together. The more Daniel listened, the more he realized how heavy her life must feel for someone so young. I'm used to doing things on my own," Maya said quietly at one point, looking down at her hands. "People, they help and then they leave. I've learned not to rely on anyone." Daniel nodded slowly. "I understand. But sometimes even a little help can mean a lot." Maya's eyes softened, just slightly. She didn't say anything, but Daniel could tell she appreciated his words. As the evening fell and the cafe's lights glowed warmly inside, Daniel realized he didn't want this to be the last time he saw her. There was a story behind those eyes, one that he felt he couldn't ignore. He didn't know what it was yet, but he wanted to be there, not in a dramatic, heroic way, but just present. Maya packed up her notebook and stood, hesitating for a moment before speaking. "Thank you. For last week?" she whispered again, almost like a habit she couldn't shake. "You have paid for me." Daniel smiled gently. "It's okay, Maya. I'm happy to help." She gave a small nod, and then, without another word, she walked away into the evening. Daniel watched her go, feeling a strange mix of hope and concern. He didn't know how much she was struggling, didn't know the secrets she carried, but he sensed there was more beneath the surface. And somehow he felt drawn to find out. As he walked home that night, Daniel kept thinking about her whisper. "You paid for me." It was such a small thing, but he realized it wasn't just the money. It was trust, the small connection between two strangers in a vast, indifferent city. And he couldn't help wondering what else he might discover if he looked closer. Little did Daniel know that small act of kindness was only the beginning. There were layers to Maya's life he couldn't yet see, shadows and struggles hidden beneath her calm exterior, and when he did uncover them, his heart would ache. But he would also find a chance to make a difference in a way he never expected. For now, though, all he could do was wait, quietly hoping their paths would cross again. The next morning, Daniel woke with Maya still on his mind. He couldn't shake the image of her sitting alone on that park bench, her eyes tired but alert, holding her bag like it was a shield. He wondered what kind of life made someone so careful with trust, so careful with even the smallest gestures of kindness. By midweek, fate seemed to step in. Daniel noticed her again at a small library near his office. She was sitting at a corner table, surrounded by books, scribbling notes in a worn notebook. Something about the way she was focused yet distracted drew him closer. He hesitated at the entrance, unsure if he should interrupt, but her eyes met his again and she gave a small, almost shy smile. "Hi," Daniel said, walking toward her table. "Hi," Maya replied softly, lowering her pencil. "Mind if I sit?" he asked. She shook her head, gesturing to the empty chair across from her. "Sure," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. For a few moments, neither spoke. Daniel watched her carefully. There was a quiet strength about her, something resilient that refused to be broken despite what he guessed must have been hardships. "You're always here," he finally said. "Do you come to the library often?" Maya nodded. "I like to read, or write, or sometimes just sit. It's peaceful." She paused and looked down at her notebook again. "Helps me forget things for a while." Daniel understood more than she realized. "I know what you mean," he said. "Sometimes a quiet place can be the only comfort in a busy world." She glanced up at him, surprised that he seemed to understand. For the first time, Daniel saw a flicker of trust in her eyes. It was small, like a candle trying to stay lit in a drafty room, but it was there. Over the next hour, they spoke in short, careful sentences. Daniel learned that Maya worked at a local cafe, often taking extra shifts to make ends meet. She lived with her younger brother, who was still in school, and she carried the responsibility of keeping their small apartment together. She spoke little about her past, only hinting at hardships and struggles, but Daniel listened patiently, sensing that her silence held stories too painful to tell. "You seem strong," Daniel said gently. Maya looked away, twisting the strap of her bag nervously. "Strong, maybe. Or maybe just stubborn. I can't really ask anyone for help. People, they help and then they leave. I've learned to do things on my own," Daniel nodded slowly. "I understand. But sometimes even a little help doesn't mean anything will be taken from you. Sometimes it's just kindness." Her eyes softened for a moment, just slightly. She didn't respond with words, but Daniel felt a subtle acknowledgement of his words. After their conversation, Daniel didn't want to push her. He knew that trust couldn't be forced. Instead, he suggested something small. "If you like, I can show you some other quiet places in the city. Libraries, parks, places where you can just sit and breathe for a while." Maya hesitated. Then after a long pause, she nodded. "Okay, maybe, someday." It wasn't a yes, not fully, but it was a start. Over the next few days, Daniel and Maya continued to cross paths. Sometimes it was at the library, sometimes near the cafe where she worked. Each time their conversations grew slightly longer, slightly more personal. Daniel learned that Maya loved sketching city streets and people, capturing life in simple pencil lines. He learned that she had a quick smile when she was relaxed, and a sharp wit when she was comfortable enough to joke. But Daniel also noticed her caution. She never let her guard down completely. She would share small details about her life, but never the deeper, more painful ones. She had walls built high, and he understood why. People had let her down before, and he wasn't about to rush her. One evening, as they walked through a quiet part of the city, Daniel asked gently, "Maya, can I ask you something?" She looked up at him, eyes wary but curious. "Yes? Why do you keep so much to yourself?" he asked softly. "I mean, I see you working hard, struggling, trying to manage everything alone. I don't understand why you don't let anyone help. Maya paused, looking down at her hands. Because I've learned that most help comes with conditions. People want something in return, or they leave when it's hard. I can't risk trusting that it will be different. Daniel nodded, his heart aching a little. He wanted to reach out, to tell her that he wasn't like that he genuinely wanted to help. But he knew that words alone wouldn't be enough. Trust had to grow slowly, carefully over time. Instead, he said quietly, I understand. I don't want anything in return, I just want to help if I can. Maya's eyes met his, and for the first time there was a small flicker of hope. She didn't smile, but there was a softness, a tiny crack in the armor she had built around herself. Thank you, she whispered. That night, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about her. He realized he was becoming part of her world, even if just in small ways. The more he learned about her life, the more he felt drawn to her. Not in a romantic way, but in a way that made him want to protect her, to make her life a little easier, a little brighter. He also realized that Maya's caution, her walls, were not signs of weakness. They were signs of resilience. She had survived hardships that he could only imagine, and yet, despite everything, she still tried to live, to find moments of peace, to keep moving forward. The next day, Daniel found himself planning small gestures of kindness, a coffee left for her at the cafe, a recommendation for a better bus route, even a simple good morning when he saw her on the street. Each act was small, almost invisible to the world, but Daniel knew they mattered. They were steps toward showing her that someone could care without expecting anything in return. Over time, Maya began to notice. A small smile when Daniel appeared, a lighter tone in her voice, a willingness to share tiny details about her day. She didn't know how much she was letting him in, but she was learning that kindness could exist without strings. For Daniel, every interaction, every conversation was a discovery. He was learning about Maya, yes, but also about the strength of human connection, about the quiet power of patience and empathy, and he knew that their friendship, fragile and new, had the potential to grow into something meaningful. As part 2 closes, Daniel watches Maya leave the library one evening, her sketchbook tucked under her arm, her bag slung over her shoulder. He feels a quiet hope stirring in his chest. He doesn't know the full story yet, doesn't know the challenges still ahead for her, but he knows one thing for certain. He wants to be there, quietly, patiently, as she navigates the world and finds her way to a better place. And deep down, he senses that their journey has only just begun. It was a rainy afternoon when Daniel finally saw Maya in a different light. The sky was gray and the streets were slick with rainwater. Most people hurried past, heads down, trying to avoid getting wet. Daniel spotted Maya standing under the awning of a small grocery store, her coat soaked, her bag clutched tightly to her chest. She looked smaller somehow, as if the rain had pressed down on her shoulders, making the weight of the world even heavier. Hey, Maya, Daniel called, running up to her. She turned, surprised, but there was a faint smile on her face. Hi, she said, her voice quiet but steady. You're going to catch a cold standing there, Daniel said, pulling his own jacket closer around him. Come on, I'll walk with you. She hesitated for a moment but nodded. As they walked, the rain splashing around their shoes, Daniel noticed that Maya was unusually silent. He had grown used to her quiet moments, but this time there was something heavier in her expression, something that made him slow his pace. Finally, after a long pause, Maya spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel, can I tell you something? Of course, he said gently. You can tell me anything. She took a deep breath, her hands shaking slightly. I haven't always had it easy. Not even close. Sometimes I had to do things I didn't want to just to survive. Daniel felt his heart tighten. He had suspected that her life was difficult, but hearing her admit it made the reality hit harder. He didn't ask questions. He didn't push. He just walked beside her, letting her words flow. I lived with people who didn't care about me. I had to make choices no one should have to make. And sometimes I failed. Sometimes I was too young, too scared to do the right thing. Her voice wavered, and Daniel could hear the weight of years of struggle in every word. He stopped walking for a moment, turning to face her. Maya, I don't care about any of that, he said firmly. You survived. You're here. That's what matters. You're strong and you're brave for still moving forward. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, and for the first time, Daniel saw the depth of her pain. "You don't understand," she whispered. "You paid for me, and I wasn't even sure if I deserved it. I've always felt like I had to earn everything, every little bit of kindness. I didn't think anyone would just help me without expecting something in return." Daniel reached out, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. "You don't have to earn kindness, Maya. Sometimes it's given freely. I'm not expecting anything from you. I just want to help." She looked at him, her lips trembling slightly, and then nodded. I think I've been waiting for someone like you. Someone who sees me, really sees me and doesn't judge." Daniel felt a surge of emotion, a mix of sadness and hope. He realized that the small act of paying for her bus fare had been more than just a gesture. It had been a lifeline, a tiny spark in a world that often treated her as invisible. As they continued walking through the rain, Maya shared more about her life. She talked about the long nights she spent caring for her younger brother, the endless shifts at the cafe, and the constant fear of being left alone. She spoke of moments when she had felt hopeless, moments when she had wanted to give up entirely. Daniel listened silently, his heart aching. He couldn't imagine the courage it had taken for her to survive all of that. And yet, despite everything, she was still moving forward, still trying to carve out a life for herself and her brother. I've made mistakes," Maya admitted, her voice breaking. "Things I'm not proud of. But I'm trying. I really am." Daniel nodded, understanding the courage it took to admit that. "We all make mistakes, Maya. What matters is that we keep trying, that we keep moving forward. And look at you, you're still standing. That's more than most people can say." For the first time, Maya smiled. A small, genuine smile that reached her eyes. It was fragile, like a flower blooming after a storm, but it was there. Daniel felt a warmth in his chest, a hope that maybe, just maybe, she could start to heal. Over the next few weeks, their friendship grew stronger. Daniel continued to offer small gestures of support, helping her carry groceries, sharing a warm meal, offering advice when she asked. But more importantly, he listened. He didn't judge, didn't push, didn't try to fix everything. He simply offered a steady presence, a safe space where Maya could be herself without fear of criticism or disappointment. Maya began to open up more, sharing her dreams and ambitions. She wanted to continue her education, to learn skills that could help her get a better job. She wanted to provide a stable life for her brother, to give him opportunities she never had. And slowly she started to believe that these things were possible, that the world could hold more than just struggle and hardship. One evening, as they walked home from the library, Maya stopped and looked at Daniel. I don't know how to thank you," she said softly. "You've done so much for me, and I don't even know if I deserve it." Daniel smiled gently. "You don't have to thank me. Seeing you safe, seeing you try, that's enough. You've earned so much just by surviving, by keeping going. That's all the thanks I need." Maya nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. "You paid for me," she whispered again, the words heavy with emotion. "But you've given me so much more than that. You've given me hope." Daniel felt his own eyes sting. "I'm glad, Maya. That's all I ever wanted, to help in any way I can." As they parted that evening, Daniel realized how much he had come to care about her. Not in a romantic way, not yet, but in a deep human way that went beyond words. He wanted to see her succeed, to see her happy, to see her life improve, and he knew that despite the challenges ahead, Maya was strong enough to face them, with him by her side, quietly supporting her. That night, as Daniel lay in bed, he thought about the journey that had brought them here. A small act of kindness, a bus fare, had opened a door into a world he had barely imagined. And behind that door was a young woman with courage, resilience, and a spark of hope that refused to be extinguished. Daniel knew that the story was far from over. There were still struggles to face, still wounds to heal, but he also knew that together they could face them. Maya had let him in, even just a little, and that was enough to start making a difference, and for the first time, Daniel felt a quiet certainty. Sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness could change a life forever. The following weeks brought a quiet rhythm to Daniel and Maya's friendship. Daniel began noticing small signs of change in her, the way she held her head a little higher, the way her eyes lingered longer on things that made her smile. It wasn't dramatic, but it was real. Slowly, Maya was beginning to trust him more, letting him into the small corners of her life she had once guarded so fiercely. One afternoon, Daniel met Maya outside the cafe where she worked. She looked tired, her coat slightly rumpled, her bag heavy on her shoulder. "Hey," Daniel said gently, "you've been working a lot. Want me to carry some of that?" Maya hesitated, then handed him the heavier items with a small, grateful smile. "Thank you," she said softly. "You don't have to, you know." "I know," Daniel said with a shrug. "I just want to help." As they walked toward the bus stop, Maya began to open up in a way she hadn't before. "It's been really hard, Daniel," she said quietly. "Some days I feel like I can't keep going, but talking to you, seeing you care, it makes a difference. Even if it's small." Daniel nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. "It's okay to feel that way," he said. "You've carried so much on your own. It's normal to feel tired, even worn out, but you don't have to carry it alone anymore." Maya looked at him, her eyes reflecting a mix of sadness and hope. I've never had anyone like you," she whispered. "Someone who doesn't judge, who doesn't expect anything in return." "It's strange but nice." Daniel smiled softly. "It's not strange. Some people just want to help because they care. And I care, Maya. About you, about your life, about your future." From that day, Daniel took a more active role in helping Maya. He found information about local programs that could assist her with better housing and job training. One weekend, he accompanied her to a community center where she could enroll in a free course on computer skills. Maya was nervous at first, unsure if she could keep up, but Daniel stayed by her side, encouraging her at every step. "You can do this," he said as they sat in the classroom together. "Just take it one step at a time. You've already survived so much. This is just another challenge you can handle." Maya smiled, a little more confidently this time. "I'll try," she said. And she did. She stayed after class, asking questions, learning new skills, and gradually building confidence she had never believed she could have. It wasn't easy. There were moments when she doubted herself, moments when the weight of her past threatened to overwhelm her. But Daniel was there, quietly supporting her, listening without judgment, offering guidance without pressure. Slowly, Maya began to realize that the world wasn't only a place of struggle, it could also be a place of opportunity, if she allowed herself to take small steps forward. One evening, after a long day at the cafe and a class at the community center, Maya and Daniel walked through the park near her apartment. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden light over the trees and the pond. Maya stopped and looked at Daniel, a thoughtful expression on her face. "Daniel," she said softly, "I don't know how to explain this, but I feel like I'm starting to believe in myself again. And it's because of you. You didn't just pay for me that day, you've been giving me hope ever since." Daniel felt a warmth spread through his chest. "I'm glad, Maya, that's all I've wanted, to help in any way I can. And you've earned it just by being yourself, by continuing to try even when it's hard." Maya's lips curved into a small, genuine smile. "I guess I never realized how much one person could make a difference in someone else's life. You've shown me that kindness isn't just money or favors, it's presence, support, and patience." Daniel nodded. "Exactly. And you're strong enough to keep moving forward. You just needed someone to remind you of that." Over the next few weeks, Maya's life began to improve in small but meaningful ways. She managed to get a better shift schedule at the cafe, allowing her to have more time for herself and her brother. She practiced the skills she learned at the community center, applying for new job opportunities that could offer stability. And through it all, Daniel remained a steady presence, quietly celebrating her victories and offering support during her setbacks. One evening, Maya invited Daniel to her apartment to meet her younger brother. Daniel had seen glimpses of her life, but this was the first time he would see it fully. When he arrived, the apartment was small but neat. Her brother greeted him shyly, and Daniel immediately noticed the bond between the siblings. Maya's care for him was evident in every detail: the tidy room, the warm meal waiting on the table, the gentle way she spoke to him. "You've done so much for her," her brother said softly. Looking at Daniel with admiration, Daniel smiled. "I just want to help. She's amazing, and I want her to have every chance she deserves." Maya watched the exchange, a small tear forming in her eye. "You've given me more than I can ever explain," she whispered later, alone with Daniel. "Not just help, but hope, confidence, a sense that life can be better." Daniel placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You've earned all of that, Maya, and more. I'm just here to remind you of what you already have inside. For the first time in a long time, Maya felt like she could breathe freely. The burden of the past, while still there, didn't feel quite so heavy. She had someone who believed in her, who supported her, who reminded her that she was not alone. And slowly, she began to believe that she could start to build a future worth living. That night, Daniel walked home with a quiet satisfaction. He knew the journey was far from over. There would still be challenges, still be moments of doubt. But he also knew that Maya was ready to face them. With support, patience, and her own inner strength, she could navigate the path ahead. And in that knowledge, Daniel found hope too. Hope that one small act of kindness, the bus fare he had given her weeks ago, could ripple outward, touching a life and helping it grow in ways he had never imagined. Maya's journey of healing and confidence had begun, and Daniel was proud to be part of it, quietly walking beside her every step of the way. The weeks turned into months, and Maya's life slowly began to change. The apartment she shared with her younger brother felt brighter. Her laughter returned in small moments, and the weight she had carried for so long seemed lighter. Daniel watched from nearby, quietly proud of her progress, knowing that the real strength had always been inside Maya. It just needed room to grow. One afternoon, Daniel and Maya walked through the park where they first met. The sun was warm, birds chirped, and the air felt gentle after a long spell of rain. Maya carried her sketchbook, flipping through pages of drawings she had completed over the past weeks. Each sketch told a story of hope, resilience, and courage, an illustration of how far she had come. "Look at these," she said, showing Daniel a page. "I drew the park where we met, and the library, and even the cafe where I work. It's like my life is starting to make sense now." Daniel smiled, seeing the detail and care in her drawings. "They're amazing, Maya. You've captured so much life and beauty here. I can see your strength in every line." Maya's cheeks flushed slightly at the praise. I couldn't have done this without you. You believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself." Daniel shook his head gently. "I just reminded you of something you already had. All I did was show you that kindness exists and that you deserve it." They continued walking in silence for a while, enjoying the gentle sounds of the park. Then Maya stopped, turning to face him with a soft smile. "Daniel, I think I finally understand what you meant when you said small acts of kindness can make a difference. You paid for me that day, and it didn't just help me get home. It reminded me that someone cared, and it's made all the difference in my life." Daniel felt a lump in his throat. "I'm so glad, Maya. That's all I ever wanted, to see you happy, safe, and confident." Maya's eyes glistened with tears, but her smile remained. "I feel ready now, ready to take control of my life, to build something better for my brother and for myself. And I want you to know, you'll always be a part of that journey." Daniel nodded, understanding the depth of her words. Their bond had grown into something strong, something that neither time nor struggle could break. It was not a bond of obligation or pity. It was a bond of trust, of respect, and of genuine care. In the following weeks, Maya put her skills to work. She applied for a job at a small design company that had noticed her sketches at a community exhibit. With Daniel's encouragement, she prepared for interviews, polished her portfolio, and practiced speaking confidently about her work. When she finally received the job offer, she couldn't contain her excitement. "I did it," she said, her voice full of joy, as she showed Daniel the email on her phone. "They want me!" "A real job, one that I can grow in." Daniel grinned, feeling a surge of pride. "I knew you could do it. You've worked so hard, Maya. This is just the beginning." Her younger brother danced around the apartment, celebrating with her, and Daniel watched them, feeling a warmth he couldn't put into words. He realized that the small gesture of paying for her bus fare had grown into something far larger. It had sparked a chain of events that changed a life. Over time, Maya became more independent, more confident, and more willing to trust others. She continued her job, helping support her brother and herself. She still faced challenges, but now she faced them with courage, knowing that she could overcome them. And Daniel remained a steady presence, not interfering, not taking control, but quietly supporting her whenever she needed it. One evening, as they sat on the park bench where they first met, Maya turned to Daniel and spoke softly. "I can't thank you enough, Daniel. You've given me hope, confidence, and a chance to live differently. You didn't just pay for me that day. You gave me a new life. Daniel shook his head, smiling gently. You've earned every bit of it, Maya. I only helped you see what was already there inside you. The strength, the courage. It was always yours. Maya nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. I hope I can continue to make you proud the way you've helped me. You already have, Daniel said, his voice full of warmth. By surviving, by trying, by trusting, you've shown me that even in a difficult world, people can rise above their struggles. You've shown me hope, Maya. They sat together for a while, watching the sun set, painting the sky with gold and pink hues. Maya felt a sense of peace she had never known before. The world still had challenges, but she now had confidence, hope, and support to face them. And Daniel, sitting quietly beside her, felt the same quiet joy he had felt months ago, the knowledge that small acts of kindness could truly change lives. As Maya stood to leave, she turned to Daniel, her eyes shining. You paid for me that day, Daniel, she said softly. But what you've given me, it's more than I could have ever imagined. Thank you for believing in me. Daniel smiled, a deep sense of fulfillment in his heart. I don't need thanks, Maya, just keep moving forward. Keep living the life you deserve. And as she walked away, her sketchbook clutched to her chest, her steps light and confident, Daniel knew that their lives had been forever changed. One small act, one whispered word had grown into a story of hope, resilience, and the quiet power of human kindness. For Maya, the future was no longer something to fear, it was something to embrace. And for Daniel, the knowledge that he had helped her find that courage was more rewarding than anything he could have imagined. The story closed with the two of them walking their separate paths, yet forever connected by the small act that started it all, a bus fare, a whispered "you paid for me," and the beginning of a life filled with hope.